Good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I hope you are having a good day. Welcome to day one of 3 looks with "'Tis the Season" by Cosmic Beauty. This is their Christmas palette from 2024. And I'm quite excited to start to dip into this. I did get it this year. And to start, I have my eyes primed with the Cover and Color in White by Dieverune Cosmetics. And to start, I am taking the shade Holly on a flat packer / shading brush. And I'm going to start to map out my shape, making sure that I look forward to make sure that it will show when my eyes are completely opened, because I am turning 40 next year, so I do have aging eyes, and it's very important for me to keep checking to make sure that eyeshadows are visible once my eyes are open. And with a smaller detail brush by Cosmic Beauty, I'm also going to take that shade along my lower lash line. And speeding up the footage for the second eye. With this, I am just trying to make sure I have a similar shape and that it looks as close to the first eye that I did as possible. My eyes are not completely symmetrical, so I do keep checking through it to make sure that they are as close as I can get them. Next, I am going in with the shade Garland, which is the mid-tone green, and I am going to use that to start to blend out the original shade Holly. With this, I'm working darkest to lightest. Usually, my preference is to start with a mid-tone shade and then go to the deepest shade and then the lightest shade. With Cosmic Beauty, I tend to go deepest to lightest because that's always how I've seen a lot of people use their palettes. Missa comes to mind, as she's the one who I remember watching the most use them. So I tend to do it that way, but I have started with the mid-tone shade previously and haven't had any issues getting the deeper shade to pack on top of the mid-tone. And I'm just going to grab a clean blending brush, and I'm just going to give that shade a little bit more help blending with the clean brush. I didn't want to add any more product to it than was already there. Now going into the lightest green, which is called mistletoe, I'm going to start to pack that in my inner corner and blend that up through the innermost part of my crease and just blend it a little bit with the deeper greens, as well as bringing it along my lower lashes as well, and just giving it a little bit of a blend with the deeper greens, not too much. I'm not too concerned about having a super seamless blend between the two, and I'm just going to make sure I get it to look close to even on both eyes. I wasn't super happy with my blend for the deeper greens, so I am going to take my one size translucent powder and I just put some on over the shades, and I'll let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, generally however long it takes for a song to play on whatever playlist I'm listening to, and then I'll brush it off, and it just softens the blend up a little bit to make me happier with it. And now I am going to prep my eyes with Shine On, which is a glitter or a shimmer primer by Clionadh and Bad to the Brow. And I'm just going to put that on my lids to get it ready for the shimmers. Going into the shade Cranberries, this is a beautiful, beautiful shifting shade. It goes from red to green. There might be a bit of a gold shift to it as well. The main ones I see are green and red, but I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it goes on really well with a brush. I didn't have to pick it up with my finger, and I wore this the whole day and had no creasing at all, so that was really nice as well. Now going into the shade Decorations, which is the lighter green shimmer, and I am just going to put that on the inner part of my lid and give it a little bit of a blend. Not really a blend, I'm going to pull it over the shade Cranberries and just make sure they look nice and meshed together. Now going back in with Holly, I'm just going to re-intensify that outer corner Make sure there's no harsh lines where the shimmer ended, and make sure those are just blended nicely. Now for blush, I am going into the Juicy Cheeks palette by Blend Bunny, and I'm going to dip into the shade Pulp, which is the reddish toned blush from there, and I'm just going to start to stipple that on. It blends out beautifully, which is exactly what I expect from Blend Bunny blushes, and I actually think this looks really lovely with the colors of my eyeshadow today. And for highlighter, I'm going into my Rainbow Highlighter by Dieverune Cosmetics. This has become one of my most used and favorite highlighters. It goes on beautifully, and I love that all the different colored glitter stays very visible and distinguishable. You can tell all the different colors when it's on, and blend it out still, you still very much can tell all the color particles that are in it, which I really like. If you don't like a glittery highlighter, it's probably not for you, but I really enjoy it. And I'm also going to take a little bit of that rainbow highlighter under my brow for a bit of a brow bone highlight. And I used a shimmery green gel eyeliner from Melt for my waterline. And I believe I decided to pick reindeer and star earrings for this day. Yes, reindeer and stars. And for perfume, it is Kaleidos Vanilla Candy Rock Sugar, I think is what it's called. It's really nice. It's not super vanilla-y, which is nice because I don't like it when things are overly vanilla. And this is the finished look for the day. I love how it turned out, and I cannot wait to play with this again tomorrow. and welcome back to day 2 if you are still here. Today I have my eyes primed with the Color and Cover in Pink for Dieverune because apparently it works really well for purple eyeshadow, so I thought I would put that to the test today. And I want to try to do a purple halo eye because I felt really good about the last halo eye I created, so I thought I would give it a go again. And to start, I am taking the shade Gifting, which is the mid-tone purple, and I'm going to start by placing that in the outer and inner part of my lid, making sure that it is visible when my eyes are open, looking straight ahead with my brows relaxed. And I will also bring it down onto my lid in kind of a V shape, making sure I leave the center open for the lightest shimmer that I want to put there. For the lower lash line, I'm just going to tap out my concealer. I do wish that I had put a little bit of the pink base underneath my eyes because I do think it made the purple more vibrant, but that's a lesson for next time. And I am going to bring it all the way across my lower lash line. I'm not going to leave a gap in the middle for a shimmer there. And then I am going to try my best to match this on my other eye. And I will say, I think the EO one from Singe has been really good for that. I'm sure other brands do a similar shape brush. I don't own one, so this is what I'm using. But it has been really good for me in trying to create this shape on my eyes. Next, I am going in with the shade 'Tis the Season, which is the deepest purple in the palette. And I am going to start to put that on my lid and up towards the crease and blend it a little bit with that original purple Gifting. And I will also put it as close to my lower lashes as possible and give a little bit of a blend with Gifting there as well. And I will have to go back with Gifting just to make sure that is intensified as well and I don't lose it while I'm applying 'Tis the Season. So it's just a little bit of back and forth, not too much. I'm not super concerned about getting a perfect blend, but I do think this turned out quite well. Next, I am dipping into the shade Party, which is the lightest purple in the row, on a fluffy brush, and I'm just going to pack that into my inner corner and start to blend out the deeper purples with that. And I kind of use a stippling motion for that. I've been feeling like I get better results with more of a stippling motion than a windshield wiper or circles, so that's what I've been doing lately, and it's been working for me pretty well. And I will also blend out the purples along my lower lash line with the shade Party as well. And now I am prepping my eyes for shimmers with Shine On by Clionadh Cosmetics and Millie from Bad to the Brow. And I'm mostly focusing that in the center of the lid, but making sure I also get it over the edges of those mattes so that I can put the darkest shimmer there. The first shimmer I'm going into is called Baubles, which is the darker purple. I initially had a little bit of trouble picking it up on the brush, but I think it's because I went in a little too hard and it got a little flaky. But after that initial mishap on my part, it picked up quite lovely and was applied really well. And I will say also, with the shimmers that I apply on this day, there was no creasing, which I could not be more happy about. I'm never too worried if I have to pat something out throughout the day, but it's always nice when you realize that you don't have to. Now for the center part of the halo, I am going in with the shade Fairy Lights, which is the lightest purple shimmer. And I really like this shimmer. It seems very ethereal and kind of fairy-like. And I really like it over that pink base. I feel like it gives it a little bit of extra interest. Not that it's not interesting on its own, because it is. It's very beautiful. But I do really like this shade, and I think the pink base just gave it a little bit extra pop. And I just make sure to add a little more baubles over the edges just to make sure the two shimmers look meshed together. Then I'm going to take the shade Tinsel and I am going to put that under my brow for a bit of a brow bone highlight and a little bit over the purple in my inner corner. And I just use a little bit of a fluffy brush to blend that out a little bit in my inner corner. And now going back in with 'Tis the Season, I am just going to go over the outermost and innermost parts of my lids just to make sure I didn't lose any definition from the shimmers. For blush, I'm going in with the Lunar Eclipse blush palette by Blend Bunny and Ellis Atlantis. I am using all three shades, which is my go-to when I use this palette, which tends to be a lot. I start with the shade Eclipse and focus it a little bit lower and more on the outside of my face, almost where you would put a contour. And then afterwards I go in with the shade Crescent and start to stipple that on top of the deeper shade. And once I get that applied, I go in with the lightest shade Zero and go take that shade a little bit further and generally over my nose as well. For highlighter, I am taking one of the Space Age highlighters from Kaleidos Makeup, which is Moon Cruiser, and it is like a blue-purple duochrome, and I thought it was perfect for this eye look, and it's one of my favorite highlighters from Kaleidos. This one's been used so much, and for good reason. It's absolutely stunning. And for earrings today, I picked snowflakes and trees. And for my perfume, I'm going in with Kaleidos in Sparkling Lychee, which is such a beautiful scent. And this is the finished look. I absolutely love how it turned out. I think I'm becoming obsessed with halo eyes. And I can't wait to play with this again tomorrow. So I hope you'll stick around for that as well. Hello and welcome to day 3 of my 3 looks with 'Tis the Season by Cosmic Beauty. Today I want to kind of go very Christmassy. So I am going to start with Stocking, which is a mid-tone red. And I'm going to start by putting that in the inner part of my eye on the lid and the crease. And I'm using the EL1 by Singe to do this. This is going to be another halo eye, but I'm going to do red and green. So we'll see how that turns out. And using the side of the EL1, I'm also going to bring that in, I would say, a third of the way on the inner part of my lower lashes. I am going to try to leave a gap on the bottom this time because I would like to put a shimmer there this time. And I completely forgot to zoom in when I started. It was a little earlier than usual when I started today. And now going into the shade Mulled Wine, which is like a burgundy. And I'm going to put that on my lid over the shade Stocking and start to blend it up into the crease with that original red. And I will also put it close to my lashes along my lower lash line and just make sure I go back and forth with both reds to make sure I get a decent enough blend. And now going in with the shade Ribbon, which is a very extremely light pink, almost more neutral. And I'm going to use that to blend the edges of Stocking and also make sure I get that wrapped around my inner corner as well and blend out the reds on that inner part of my lower lash line as well. Now for the outer part of my eye, I am going to start with the shade Garland, which is that mid-tone green. And I'm going to start by packing that on my lid and in the crease, making sure I can see it when my eyes are open and my brows are relaxed. And I'm going to meet that up with the red just on the bottom in a bit of a V shape, but I won't be blending the greens and reds together because that would just make a bit of a mess. So I'm just going to get the shape I like, and I will also take that along the outer part of my lower lashes trying to leave a gap in the middle for a shimmer. My eyes are quite watery, so I do keep dabbing them. So if you notice that shadows aren't sticking the best on my lower lashes, that it's not the fault of the shadows at all, it's my watery eyes. And now going in with the shade Holly, which is the deepest green in the palette, I am going to put that on the outer part of my lid and bring that up into the crease and blend with that original green, as well as putting it against my lashes along my lower lash line. I do go back in with the brush that I had garland on just to make sure that I get Holly blended well. And then I go in with the lightest green mistletoe with a fluffier blending brush, and I just go over the edge of those deeper greens and try to get a decent blend. And I will also go back in with the deeper greens just to make sure I don't lose any of the intensity that I'm looking to keep with those colors. And now to prep my lids for shimmers, I'm going in with Shine On by Clionadh Cosmetics and Millie from Bad to the Brow. And I'm going to focus mainly on the center part as well as bringing it over the edges of those mattes just to make sure that the shimmers that I use on the outer parts still stick well. To start, I'm going to use that stunning shade Cranberries that shifts from red to green, and I am going to put that on the outer and inner part of that V, leaving the inner part open for shimmers. And I will make sure to go over the innermost and outermost part with that deepest green holly and the deepest red mulled wine, just to make sure they don't look like stark lines and make sure they mesh well together. And for the center of the halo eye, I am going in with the shade Tinsel. This shade is a little more sheer. I find it harder to see, especially on camera. I think it would have been more visible had I had a base underneath it instead of just the white base of my primer. And I do take that up quite high as well, making sure it's fairly diffused under my brow. But I do intensify that outer part of my brow for a brow highlight. And taking the shade Tinsel and giving it a little spray with a bit of spray, I'm putting that in the center of my lower lash line, and I do bring it down a little bit just to make it look a little more dispersed on the lower lash line, and I do really like how that turned out. Also adding some to my inner corner and just making sure that that looks a little bit diffused and not so stark on the dark red. For blush, I am going back into the shade Pulp from Blend Bunny's Juicy Cheeks blush palette. I don't think that she has these blush palettes anymore. I think the main blushes that she has in her line are the collabs that she did with Jordan Liberty, which I don't have because I have so many blush palettes that I couldn't justify buying another one. But if they're anything like the ones that she's already put out, I'm sure they are absolutely phenomenal. And for highlighter, I am going back into Rainbow by Dieverune Cosmetics. I can't stop reaching for this highlighter. It's got me in a chokehold at this point. I love how sparkly it is. It's quite captivating. For eyeliner, I went in with a gold by Melt Cosmetics, and I wore these cute little Mr. and Mrs. Claus. I ended up going with a replica perfume instead of the Kaleidos, which is by the fire, and I pair that with kale juicy apple, and it's like hot cider by the fire. It's so good. Highly recommend if you have those. And this is the completed third and final look from this 3 looks with Cosmic Beauty's 'Tis the Season Christmas palette from 2024. I absolutely love this look. This is my favorite of the 3. And yeah, and I really like those earrings with it. Now that I'm seeing that. If you made it through this whole video, thank you so much for being here. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening. And hopefully see you next time. Bye.